Hello and welcome to Lard TV, where we are in the studio with internationally famous and renowned game designer David Brown, the housewife's favourite, and Dave is joining us to show us a new set of rules that he's produced, General Dame 2, the second edition, funnily enough, of the very popular General Dame 1. David, welcome indeed to Lard Island. What we're going to be doing, and what David's going to be doing, is he's going to be running through all the different steps within the rules, all the different chapters, explaining how the rules work, and then we're going to get together and we're going to play a game. What game we're going to be playing, Dave? What battle have we chosen?
I think we'll play something from 1813 this time.
1813, right, that sounds good, right, good, okay. Well, without further ado, David, I'm going to ask you to tell us about General Dame, so I'll leave you to it.
What I'll do is we'll go through a series of videos where we'll describe General Dame, the second edition. So first of all, the game size. General Dame 2 is both a divisional and a core level game, meaning players can either field a division on the tabletop, as we have here today, or for larger games we can command multiple divisions grouped into cores. Today we'll just be concentrating on the divisional game. In front of us we've got a standard French division, and this division is commanded by the divisional CNC, who sits over there on the right. The CNC is usually represented by a command group, and this is where your artillery caissons are also deployed. For artillery caissons you'll need 2 per division, and these can be your beautifully painted artillery models, as we have here, or if you don't have them you can just simply use markers. It really doesn't matter. The division we have here today is made up of several brigades. In this instance we have 4 infantry brigades and 1 cavalry brigade, and each brigade is led by its brigadier. Your tactical fighting units are the same as they were under General Dame 1. We have battalions, skirmishers, cavalry regiments and artillery batteries. These are then all graded according to ability, and there are now 6 troop grades, which is elite, veteran, grenadier, line, reservist and recruit. Again, each tactical unit will be graded by its size, so that's either going to be large, standard or small. In the majority of cases you're going to have standard size units. The rules have no fixed basing requirements. As long as your formations such as line and column can be clearly identified on the tabletop, it matters not how your figures are based. Nor is there a fixed figure scale, so players are free to decide how many figures they can have in each unit. It could be as few as 12 or as many as 36 or 40. So the important changes at this point are that under GDA 2 ADCs are now set by a division's average size, and it's no longer 1 ADC per brigade. Also, brigadier quality is defined at the beginning of the game, so all your brigadiers will have a quality either bold, standard or poor. And finally, your tactical units casualty status is now reduced to just 3 points. They're either fresh, they're worn, or of course they're dispersed, which makes the recording of casualties a lot easier. Now we move on to deployment. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cover the new way that you deploy your divisions in more detail when we show you the actual game in progress. But just to point out that there's no longer the use of fog of war cards. We use dice to indicate the position of a brigade on the tabletop, or possible position of a brigade on the tabletop. There will be a number of scouting attempts that will potentially reveal those brigades that are indicated by the dice. If the scouting is successful, the brigade is placed on table. If the scouting is unsuccessful, the dice remains in place, and of course the opposing player is presented with less and less information if his scouting attempts are not successful. If scouting attempts are really good and really successful, he'll see much more of the enemy force, so when he comes to deploy, he'll have a much better idea of the enemy dispositions. But we'll show you that in full when we come to the actual battle itself. Now we'll look at the game turn for General Dame 2. This has 5 distinct phases. We have command and initiative, then charges, then movement, the fire phase, and then finally the combat phase, which you may have noticed for General Dame 1 is exactly the same as the first edition. So, first is the command initiative phase, where players issue ADC taskings or CNC commands. More on those later. Some of the old ADC taskings have been retired and placed with new ones, but on the whole most of the taskings remain the same or will be very similar, and people will recall them pretty quickly from GDA 1. After the command and initiative phase, we then have the charge phase. So the winner of the initiative, who is termed the phasing player, will declare his charges first, followed by the non-phasing player's charge declarations. These charges are then carried out to their conclusion, again with the phasing player's charges going first. We then move on to the movement phase. This is now split into tactical movement, where your on-table units will move first, and then it's followed by the reserve movement phase, where the reserves that are moving onto the table will finally go last. Again, this is split between the two, so you have the phasing player moving first and then the non-phasing player moving second. The fire phase now follows, and this sequence has been revised so that skirmishers now fire first, then artillery fires, and then finally infantry volley fire. Again, the phasing player fires first in each sub-phase, followed by the non-phasing player. Then finally, we have the combat phase, where all melee combat's being resolved over either 1 or 2 rounds. So that's it for the game turn. Next we'll be looking at each phase of the game turn in more detail.
Well, that's great, Dave. Thanks very much. So we've seen how the game turn is structured. What are you going to tell us about next?
What I'm going to go through each phase of the game turn in more detail, describing how it works in GDA 2 and also just elaborating slightly on any differences from the first edition.
Yeah, that's great. So if you're used to playing GDA 1, that will be covered, as well as if you're coming to the rules afresh. Obviously the rules are there and clear for that, but it's good to highlight any changes. Right, great. Well, thanks very much, Dave, for telling us all about that, and thank you for watching. We'll be back in the next programme in the next day or two, so we hope to see you then. In the meantime, don't forget, we have General Dame 2 available for advanced orders with some great deals. We've got the free PDF with anybody placing an advanced order for the hard copy, which is great. So wherever you are in the world, on release day on the March the 4th, you will have a copy of the rules with you, at least in PDF format. And of course we've got the fabulous prize draw with those beautiful vignettes that Jim Ibbotson has painted for us, and we'll have a look at them as we leave you now. Beautiful. So see you soon.